What if finding this video isn't random? What if it's a sign that something inside you has already begun to change? Lately, have you noticed strange synchronicities? People disappearing from your life, old habits no longer feeling right, or a quiet feeling that you're being pulled toward something bigger. Most people dismiss these moments as coincidence, but some believe they're the first signals of a deeper quantum alignment, a shift in how you think, perceive, and respond to reality. If that's happening to you, this message may arrive at exactly the right time. Stay until the end, because the final sign could reveal why you're beginning to see the world in a way that only a small percentage of people ever do. This style is designed to create curiosity and retention while framing the ideas as beliefs or possibilities, rather than established facts.
The quantum field does not route activations to fields that are not ready to receive them. You are here because something in your internal configuration reached a threshold, quietly, without announcement, through the accumulated weight of everything you have lived, and the field responded by delivering this transmission at the exact moment your alignment was ready to be named. Your quantum alignment is not approaching activation. It is activating right now, in the field between these words, and whatever is stirring in you as you receive them. Write "activating" in the comments. The field registers what is named in the window of an active transmission. Name it. There is a specific inner experience that marks the 1%, and it is not what the world told you it would feel like. It is not certain, not the absence of doubt or difficulty or the quiet days when the knowing feels further away than usual. The 1% carry doubt just as the 99% do. What is different is the relationship with it. The 99% treat doubt as evidence, as data about whether what they are building is real. The 1% treat it as weather, something moving through the field that does not change what the field actually is. You have been feeling something that you may not have had precise language for. A persistent quality of knowing that runs beneath whatever the surface of your life is presenting. A sense that something is being built that the outer world has not yet confirmed. A frequency of quiet certainty that coexists with the ordinary uncertainty of a life that has not finished manifesting what the inner field has already organized around. This is quantum alignment activating, not the arrival of perfect conditions. The reorganization of your internal field around a coherence that is stronger than what the external circumstances are currently showing you. The 99% wait for outer evidence before they allow the inner alignment. The 1% allow the inner alignment before the outer evidence arrives. And that is precisely the sequence through which the outer evidence is produced. The ache you have been carrying, the specific restlessness of someone whose inner field is operating at a frequency their current outer life has not yet caught up to, is not evidence that something is wrong. It is evidence that the alignment is active, that the field you are in is already reorganized around something the surface has not yet reflected. You have been in the 1% longer than you allowed yourself to claim it. Every season that tested your frequency was building the specific architecture that quantum alignment at this level requires. The 1% are not people who avoided difficulty. They are people whose difficulty built something. There is a fundamental difference between the pressure that breaks and the pressure that constructs. And the difference is not in the nature of the pressure, but in the configuration of the field receiving it. A field that maintains its signal through sustained contrary pressure does not emerge weakened on the other side. It emerges with a coherence that low-pressure conditions could never have produced. Think of what genuine alignment actually requires. It requires a field that can hold its frequency when the outer world is broadcasting the opposite. That can sustain the knowing when the evidence argues against it. That can remain organized around the divine signal when everything visible is organized around the old frequency. That capacity is not built through ease. It is built through exactly the kind of sustained, testing, pressure that does not break passage you have been living through. The 99% look at difficulty and see evidence of misalignment. The 1% understand that certain kinds of difficulty are the specific mechanism through which alignment is established at a depth that holds permanently. Not every difficulty is this. Some is simply difficult. But the specific quality of pressure that comes alongside a genuine inner knowing that arrives in the seasons when the inner field is reorganizing around a new frequency before the outer world has followed, that pressure is construction. What you have been building through everything that felt like obstruction is the field configuration that your quantum alignment required. And that configuration is complete enough now that the activation can begin. Quantum alignment is not a metaphor. It is a precise description of what happens in the field when the different layers of a consciousness stop pulling against each other and begin moving in the same direction. Most people are broadcasting a fragmented signal. What they think they want, what they believe they deserve, what they feel is actually possible for them, what they do in their daily lives. These 4 layers are pointing in different directions simultaneously. And a fragmented signal produces a fragmented field. The universe responds to what is actually being broadcast, not what is being hoped for. And a field broadcasting contradiction receives contradictory experiences. Quantum alignment is when those 4 layers, thought, belief, feeling, action, achieve coherence. When what you think, what you genuinely believe, what you feel in your body, and how you move through the world all begin expressing the same frequency. Not perfectly, not without variation, but fundamentally at the level of the signal the field is reading, organized around the same direction. When that coherence reaches the threshold your field has been approaching, something specific happens in the quantum layer of reality. The probability distribution of what can manifest shifts. Configurations that were statistically improbable in the fragmented field become statistically natural in the coherent one. Not because the rules changed, because the signal the field is organizing around changed. And reality, which is always and without exception responding to the actual signal, reorganizes accordingly. This is the activation, not a single dramatic event. A threshold crossing in the coherence of your field that changes what the field can deliver to you, attract to you, and build through you going forward. What that activation specifically unlocks, the concrete life-level changes that quantum alignment at this threshold produces, is what I'm about to show you. Stay. I want to tell you about the period when I understood the difference between wanting alignment and inhabiting it. Because the difference was not what I expected. I had been doing everything I understood to be right. The practices, the internal work, the deliberate construction of a frequency that matched what I was moving toward. And I was making progress. Measurable, real progress. But there was a layer beneath the progress that had not shifted. A baseline frequency that all the practices were built on top of. Unchanged, broadcasting the same signal it had always broadcast underneath everything I was consciously doing. That baseline was the frequency of someone trying to become the 1%. Of someone who believed the alignment was something to be achieved rather than something already active. Of someone who was, in the most fundamental layer of their field, still operating from the identity of a person who had not yet crossed. The shift that changed everything was not a new practice. It was a recognition, a moment of genuine internal honesty where I saw the gap between what I was consciously intending and what my baseline field was actually broadcasting. Between the identity I was constructing and the identity that was running beneath it. And when I saw it, when I stopped managing that gap and started sitting with the full reality of it, something dissolved, not through force, through the specific quality of honest contact with what was actually present. And in the space that opened, the alignment that had been available all along, that had been blocked by the performance of seeking it finally had room to stabilize. The 1% is not somewhere you arrive. It is something you recognize yourself as being, and then inhabit fully enough that the field can organize around it completely. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Stay with me at this frequency. Here is what separates the 1% from the 99%, and why the 99% will watch this video, feel inspired, and then return to the previous frequency by tomorrow. The 99% are always becoming, always in the process of working toward the state they want to inhabit. Always one more practice, one more breakthrough, one more confirmation away from allowing themselves to fully claim the frequency they are building toward. And because they are always becoming, they never fully arrive. Because the field reads what you actually are, not what you are working toward. The 1% make a different choice. They claim the frequency before the outer world confirms it. They inhabit the aligned state before it is fully reflected in their circumstances. Not through delusion. They see their circumstances clearly. But they choose to identify with the field they are building rather than the circumstances they are leaving. And that choice is not cosmetic. It is functional. It changes the signal the field is reading. And when the signal changes, the delivery changes. This is the precise mechanism through which the gap between the inner field and the outer circumstances closes. Not by waiting for the outer to confirm the inner, by inhabiting the inner so completely and consistently that the outer has no choice but to reorganize. The 99% are waiting for permission from reality to become the 1%. The 1% stopped waiting and started being, which is precisely what made the reality follow. You are reading this because something in you already knows which side of that line you are meant to be on. The alignment is already activating. The only question is whether you are going to claim it or keep working toward it. Write 1% in the comments as the declaration of someone who stopped becoming and started being. Quantum alignment activating has specific signatures in daily experience. The 1% recognize them. The 99% explain them away. The synchronicities have changed, not more frequent, more precise. Where before the meaningful coincidences arrived occasionally and loosely connected, they are now arriving with a specificity that the rational mind cannot comfortably file under coincidence. The right conversation at the right moment. The idea appearing fully formed at the exact moment it is needed. The connection materializing through channels that should not logically have produced it. This is not the field becoming more generous. This is the field responding to a coherence it can now route through. The relationship with effort has shifted. Things that used to require enormous internal force to produce are completing with less friction. Not because the tasks are simpler, because you are no longer generating the specific internal resistance that comes from a field working against itself. The energy that was previously allocated to maintaining coherence against contrary pressure is becoming available for direction. What you build from an aligned field has a different quality than what you build from a fragmented one, and you can feel the difference in how it flows. And the specific quality of what is being drawn into your field is changing. The people, opportunities and information arriving in your life right now are not the same calibration as what was arriving 6 months ago. Something about the texture of what the universe is routing to you has shifted, as if the field updated your address and what belongs to the new frequency has started finding its way to the new location. These are not coincidences. These are the signatures of an alignment that has crossed the threshold of activation. Read them accurately. They are confirmation, not accident. Here is what quantum alignment is not, because the misunderstanding of this is what keeps most people from fully inhabiting the 1%. It is not the absence of challenge. The 1% do not live in a field where difficulty has been removed. They live in a field where difficulty has been recontextualized, where what used to generate fragmentation now generates refinement, where the pressure that would have broken the previous frequency is received by the aligned field as information rather than evidence of failure. It is not a permanent state of elevated feeling. The aligned field does not broadcast from a continuous peak experience. It broadcasts from a stable baseline, a ground frequency that neither the good days nor the difficult ones move dramatically. The 1% have days that feel ordinary, days that feel difficult, days that feel nothing like what the concept of quantum alignment suggests from the outside. What is different is the floor. The lowest point of an aligned field is higher than the highest point of a fragmented one. And it is not achieved by eliminating the identity that does not belong to the 1%. The 99% think the shift requires destroying what they have been. The 1% understand that the old identity is not destroyed, it is integrated. The parts of you that operated from limitation, from scarcity, from the frequency of someone who had not yet arrived, they are not cast away. They are included in the larger coherence of a field that has grown big enough to hold them without being organized around them. What you are becoming does not require you to leave who you were. It requires you to become large enough that who you were is one part of a much more complete field. When quantum alignment stabilizes as your genuine baseline, not a state you enter and exit, but the ground you operate from, the deliveries that belong to that frequency begin arriving. The creative channel opens fully. What flows through a coherent field is not the output of someone working hard from a fragmented signal. It is the expression of an intelligence larger than the individual self. The specific quality of work that carries something the rational mind alone could never produce. The 1% do not produce better work by trying harder. They produce different work by clearing the interference between what they are and what they are creating. The material field reorganizes, not as reward, as consequence. An aligned field does not attract abundance by deserving it. It conducts abundance the way a clear wire conducts electricity. Not because it earned the current, but because it stopped blocking it. What has always been available in the field becomes accessible when the receiver is coherent enough to receive it. The relational field shifts. The people calibrated to the 1% frequency begin appearing.
If today's message resonated with you, don't let it become just another video you scroll past. Take a moment to reflect on what is changing within you and the choices you're making each day. Whether you see quantum alignment as a spiritual journey, a mindset shift, or simply a new perspective on life, lasting change comes through consistent action. If this video gave you something to think about, subscribe and join us as we continue exploring the mysteries of consciousness, reality, and human potential. Until next time, stay curious, stay aware, and keep growing.